welcome to Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Weldin. Today's story is part 2 of Trouble at Transdimensional High, an original story written for you by Michael Lowe from luckoflegends.com. Michael is the one that helped us develop our story's role-playing game. Stay tuned for more information about him and his work at the end of the episode. Thanks! Enjoy the episode! Trouble at Transdimensional High, Part 2. The day only got worse from there. The inside of the tree was a huge maze. Staircases and doorways everywhere, even on the ceiling and walls. And they went every which way, and so did you. Wherever you walked, that was down, but it was weird seeing kids running above your head or across the wall. Of course, some flew, too, and Petra saw at least one go through a wall. Fortunately, new kids got a wisp, a floating light that showed you the way to your next class. The tiny pink light blew like a dandelion seed through the weird halls that had a disturbing habit of suddenly darting one way or another without warning. Keeping up had Petra winded. Homeroom wasn't so bad. It was in this weird dimension. The door had opened into a moonlit grove, and she'd sat with a group of other kids on a grassy hill. The teacher was a giant golden fox who seemed to speak in their heads. She was the height of Petra's dad when she was sitting down, and her tails waved behind her like some kind of mirage. Welcome. I'm Dr. Nine, and this is your homeroom class. I know each of you has your own home, and nothing can replace that. But here, at school, you need a place and people you can trust. A place of safety and people you can turn to if you're in trouble. She cocked her head, and her eyes, a deep amber gold, seemed to sparkle in the dim moonlight. I hope I can earn that trust. If you need me or feel uncomfortable, you have only to think of me. I will hear you. Okay, that was a little creepy, but somehow also reassuring. Petra would have been all in, except she was there. The girl who called her a freak. Her name was Velda, and when everyone did introductions, she snootily introduced herself as a witch. She spent the whole time staring daggers at Petra and Slick. At least nobody else seemed bothered by the python. After all, her classmates included a giant, furry yeti named Umith with random day-glow pink and green tufts of hair. Hey, dudes! A person the color of ink with 4 slender spider limbs. Nandy, she, her, a pleasure. A huge, red-skinned guy with one horn who looked as if he was going to burst into tears when he said hello. I'm Ben K. And his friend, a tiny foot-tall kid wearing a green hoodie and baggy pants with a thick accent. I'm Finn, and Ben K, he's big, but he's a softie. Apart from Velda, everybody seemed friendly. The big red guy seemed like he was even more nervous than Pet. When it was her turn, she said, I'm Petra, and this is Slick. She wondered if she had to say she was a Gorgon. A half-Gorgon? She felt weird about saying it, like she had to label herself. But at the same time, she was dying of curiosity about the others. Nandy seemed so mysterious and cool, and Ben K had some kind of horns on his head. Was he a demon? Finn, standing on Ben K's shoulder, caught her staring, grinned, and winked. He's an Oni. Sort of an ogre, I reckon, but from Japan. We've been friends a while. He tapped his own chest. Me, I'm Faye. He's a leprechaun, Ben K said in his deep voice. That means he's lucky. Finn tugged his friend's ear. We talked about that. Dude, that's like me saying you ate people because you're an Oni. The big ogre immediately blushed a darker shade of red and started to tear up, and Finn used both hands to tousle his hair. Relax, Ben. Don't take everything so serious. Dr. Nine's soothing voice interrupted. I'd love to have you all stay longer, but I'm afraid you'll be late to your next classes. Their wisps, which had all gone floating around the grove, suddenly darted back to each student, hovering near them. Dr. Nine lowered her sleek, golden-furred head and gave them a kindly look. Remember, you are welcome here. Enjoy your learning and ask for help when you need it. The door, set into the base of the hill, opened, and Petra's stomach lurched as she saw Nandy step into it and walk down, gravity bending into the ground. Petra's wisp darted next to her, vibrating as if to demand attention, and her hair, hissing, struck at it. It danced out of reach and dove for the doorway as the others disappeared through it. She looked back, hollered, "Thanks!" at the giant fox, and she was running again. The instructor in Legends and Lore was even stranger than Dr. Nine. The figure was something like a blaze of light. It was hard to look directly at them. Fortunately, they were wearing a very crisp-looking three-piece suit that dimmed their light considerably, and a pair of dark glasses and a bowler hat made their head almost visible. "I am Dr. Astor. My pronouns are they, them. Welcome, scholars, to the Endless Library." They gestured at the room? Could it be called that? The spines of books formed the floor, the walls, and the ceiling, with occasional narrow windows and skylights that illuminated the dark library with shafts of light. The weird part was some windows were in the floor, but light shone from them the same as the others, as if the whole place were suspended in mid-air with a sun on every side. It smelled like books, the dusty, warm smell of paper and leather, and felt like being wrapped in a huge, warm blanket, bringing back every afternoon Petra had spent lost in a book. There were long tables with brass and green glass lamps, but the room opened into other rooms. When she angled her head right, it seemed like they just kept going. Endless halls of book spines lit by yellow shafts of sunlight. Dr. Astor's voice interrupted her thoughts from right over her shoulder. She jumped. "Though we may venture deeper into the stacks as the year progresses, I must advise you that the Endless Library is not carelessly named. This dimension includes all written words, those that have been lost, found, imagined, and even those yet to be written. Words give shape to reality, and many have a life of their own. I would not want any of you to wander off." The kids eyed each other. Finn raised his eyebrows and shot Petra a look like, "Okay, what?" "For now, please explore within this room. Give the books a chance to listen to you and allow the one best suited to choose to share its wisdom." The kids eyed each other again. Velda, clutching a bag against the hole in her dress, raised a hand. Dr. Astor?" Ugh, her voice. She sounded just like every mean girl Petra had ever met. "What do you mean? Like, are they gonna lecture us or something?" A couple of the others giggled nervously. The shining figure reached out with a brilliant hand, running it across the wall. Now that she looked, Petra could see that there weren't any shelves, just books of every size and shape somehow fitted together into a solid wall. One book, with a spine the size of a mattress, slid out a foot into Dr. Astor's hand. "The Endless Library is composed of words. Haven't you ever wondered why, on occasion, words simply bubble up inside of you? Words know where and when they're needed most. These books long to be read. They'll find you if you open yourself to what they have to teach." They tapped the book, and it almost reluctantly tucked itself back in. Dr. Astor gestured at the shelves, and the kids, cautious at first, began wandering around the room. Ben K lay down full length on the floor. Nandy climbed halfway up the wall, the long spider legs from her back holding her effortlessly above them as she ran her hands over the titles. Petra shot a look at Velda and headed across the room. "A book, huh?" She couldn't help it. She was curious. She stared at the titles. The spines were of all sorts of material. Wood, leather, bone. One looked as if it were gemstones, sparkling in the dim light. She ran a hand cautiously across them, fascinated. They felt almost as if they were alive, humming. Suddenly, one squirmed under her hand, pushing into it. She gave a little shriek, dropped it, then sheepishly bent to pick it up. It was a slim volume, light tan in color, the cover and binding something that looked like leather but felt cool and hard, like metal. The letters didn't look familiar at first, but then seemed to flow and bend, and she could read the title, The Covenant. She sat down, cross-legged on the bumpy spines, leaning up against the books in the wall, shifting Slick's weight. Annoyed, she realized he had probably been asleep. He slid back into her bag. "Oh, get over yourself. I'm just reading." She opened the book on her lap, her hair darting out to flip the cover page. It was a history. She skimmed through the early pages. Some of it was confusing, and it included names and places she couldn't imagine pronouncing. When she thought about it, they must not just be other languages, but ones designed for people with different ways of speaking. Her hair, feeling her focus, slithered down and roamed the pages, and she brushed at it absently. It was about Earth, but the book called it The Crossroads. She found a passage that grabbed her. Earth is unique among dimensions. It stands open as a crossroads to seemingly infinite other realities. People from other worlds have found ways to travel to and from Earth, but not directly into other spaces. And this, of course, led to conflict. So wait, her mom, who she'd never met, she was from a whole other world? She skimmed a bit more, found a passage that explained. Some peoples settled on Earth, building families with humans and becoming native to the crossroads. She wondered if that's what had happened. Like, Gorgons were in Greek legends, so they had to have been here for a while, right? She felt a bit stunned. She had never thought too much about what she was, as it hadn't been an issue when she was little. But ever since her hair had started moving on its own, ever since the day she compulsively reached for her phone. She shook her head, frustrated at herself. She needed to focus. She might not feel at home here, but there was so much to learn about who she was, who she could decide to be. Ahem! Petra jumped a little. She'd totally lost track of time. Dr. Astor's voice was faint but crisp. This period of study will end in a few moments. Feel free to take your volume home. I ask you to compose a short essay to read for the class about what you've learned due tomorrow. Petra grabbed her bag, shoved the book inside, and stood up. She reached up to check for Slick and had a moment of confusion. He wasn't in the bag, and he wasn't looped around her. That's when she saw Velda. She was halfway out the door, framed by books, staring back at Petra. Catching her eye, Velda grinned maliciously and patted her bag, which shifted suddenly and bulged before the slender witch ducked into the hall. Slick! Petra dashed into the hall. Where had she gone? Benkei came out behind her. Hey, Petra, what's... There! She caught a glimpse of Velda's dress as she docked into a room, tore after her, and leapt through the doorway, to find a green-haired woman staring back at her. Welcome! The teacher was almost weirdly normal. Sure, she had vines in her hair, but... Petra craned her neck, trying to see into the room. There! The classroom looked like some kind of swamp, and Velda was on a giant toadstool, seated comfortably and looking totally innocent. The teacher put a hand on Petra's shoulder. She was pulled to look straight into her eyes. Dear, are you all right? Pet could feel her eyes suddenly burning behind her glasses, hear her hair hissing in her ears, and ducked her head, pushing into the class. No, I'm fine. She had to focus. She couldn't let it happen again. The teacher stepped aside. Please, make yourself comfortable. and welcome to Powers Practicum." She smiled. Benkei and Finn poked in the door, wisps hanging by their heads. As Petra made her way to the ring of toadstool seats, Benkei hustled over and Finn whispered, "Hey, are you okay?" She shook her head. Not a no, just a not now. She grabbed the open seat next to Velda and shot her a look. All she'd have to do was lower the glasses, Petra thought. Just a quick look, and she could get Slick back. "Look at all these lovely faces." The teacher swept in, startling Petra out of her moment. She felt almost guilty, shot a look around to check if anyone had noticed. Velda was smirking, refusing to meet her eyes, and Benkei was looking worried. Finn was sitting on his shoulder and raised his eyebrows when Petra spotted him. She looked away. She needed to get a breath. The teacher had long, vine-like hair and skin with a faint green tinge. "Well, wonderful! I'm Laurel, and this is Powers Practicum, a place where we'll spend some time together each day getting to know ourselves, learning to breathe and accept who we are, and play around a bit with our powers, of course." Here, she paused to smile warmly at them. She seemed so sincere it was almost cringy. Petra felt a hot pulse of rage, then looked down. She got them all doing the introductions again, then had the kids separate into groups. "Today I just want you to spend some time relaxing, being yourselves. I know you're in a new school, with new people." She paused to nod to Nandi here. "Some of you even in a new world. The first step in knowing yourself is learning to listen, to give yourself space to breathe and just be. That's going to mean different things for different people, of course. You might choose to meditate in the quiet area or join a drum circle to get into a bit of rhythm." The quiet area was a sunny circle of light. The drum circle was where Velda and Petra sat. Laurel tapped the toadstool Velda was seated on, and a hollow boom sound was released. She smiled. "Oh, see? Built-in percussion." She spun as if dancing, arms wide to indicate the different areas. "Find your own space, everyone." Petra stared at Velda's bag. Velda didn't budge. She was staying in the drum circle, but she did shoot a nervous look sideways as other kids settled in around them. Good, thought Petra. She should be nervous. She could feel her eyes burning, and her hair's hiss had become a steady whisper in her ears. Laurel settled in across the circle, seated on a broad, low mushroom. She smiled at the small group, which included Finn and Benkei, who was still looking worried. "Okay, everyone, I'll get us started." She set up a simple, easy beat. "Join in as you like." Petra was simmering. What was this? It was all too weird. She felt like she was dreaming, but the burning behind her glasses, the hissing, it was too familiar. She knew if she wasn't careful, it would happen again. She should just tell somebody, The beat seemed to amplify. She realized the other kids in the circle had started drumming too. That she was drumming and hadn't even realized it. The beat was simple, but she felt like it was humming inside her. She started working her hands harder, really hitting the toadstool, which felt like it was made of some kind of heavy rubber, but boomed like a barrel. "All right! If you feel it, you can sing or speak or just make whatever noise you like with the beat." Miss Laurel, seemed way into it and started singing a little repeated melody. It layered with the beat, and even though she knew it was lame, Petra started to feel it. Suddenly, she felt the words bubble up and she was shouting. Singing?
How can you sit there like you did nothing at all? Acting so perfect, looking like you're at the mall? Slick is my friend, and he's always been with me. He's got to be terrified. What's with the cruelty? I don't know who you think I am, but you'll see. what happens to people who get me really angry.
The words came out of her like bullets, sharp and pointed on the beat, but nobody stopped. Laurel just nodded, then looked to Velda. The beat swelled, then she almost sang back.
You sick? You're snake on me and ruin my dress. And you're acting like I'm the one who needs to confess? I didn't ask for this. You came at me first. I'm just keeping safe in case you try something worse. I know what people do if you trust too easily. At least you didn't try to hide that you're a bully. So yeah, I took your snake. So don't come at me again. I won't let someone hurt me or pretend to be a friend.
She was crying? And she was looking at Petra now, and Petra's eyes weren't burning anymore. They were full. She felt like shouting, and the tears came down as she sang back.
Oh, I didn't sick him on you. He just thought you were a cat. It's my fault. I got nervous. You can't blame him for that. I don't fit in on Earth. And even here, I'm all alone. I'm a freak who gets upset and turns her friends into stone. It happened before, and it could happen again. I just want my snake back. He's my only friend.
The beat died away. Both girls were crying now, and Petra felt a warm, huge hand on her shoulder. It was Ben-Kay. She sobbed, leaned into the ogre. Velda had leaned into Nandy, who had wrapped a long spider leg around her shoulder. Laurel, without speaking, offered tissues. Nandy whispered something under her breath. Velda nodded, then opened her bag, and Slick came slithering out to wind his way around Petra's body. She sobbed and stroked him. "Thank you." Velda blew her nose noisily. "I'm sorry." Petra shook her head. "I didn't know, and Slick is fast sometimes. You wouldn't think it, but he can move." Velda was quiet. Nandy spoke next, her voice small. "Your friend from before, are they all right?" Petra sniffed. I don't know. My friend said she was fine, but she hasn't." And just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, and there it was. Harriet! The text just read, "OMG, Pet, are you there? They took my phone and I lost your number." She laughed, sniffling. "I guess she is." She looked up into Ben-Kay and Finn's worried faces, smiled weakly, then looked around. "I'm sorry, everybody, Laurel smiled warmly. "You did exactly what you should do. That's why you're here, to learn more about yourselves and find a place where you can be yourselves together." She nodded at Petra's phone. "Do you want to answer?" Flushed, Petra looked down and hammered out a quick text. "I was freaking out. Are you okay?" Just then, the wisps winked into existence. Laurel raised her voice to include the other groups. "I'm afraid that's all the time we have today. Go and refuel. The courtyard has excellent food for all sorts. I very much look forward to seeing you all tomorrow." In the hall, Velda was waiting. She looked, if not friendly, not all icy like she had. Ben-Kay and Finn stood a little away. Nandy waited down the hall for the witch. They had a moment. Velda gave Petra a look. "You know you owe me an outfit, right? Okay. I'm not much good with clothes, though." "It's cool. I'll take you some time, if you want." And she smiled, a quick flash of white teeth. Petra found herself blushing. Yeah, I'd like that. She nodded awkwardly. All right, then, I'll see you after lunch? Yeah. Finn and Ben K came closer. Finn, perched on his friend's shoulder, waggled his hand in a side-to-side motion. Right, are you two good now? Petra watched Velda walking away. She turned just before she was out of sight and gave a little wave. Petra smiled, turned to Ben K. Yeah, I think we are.
So, you want to grab some lunch?
Yeah. She stroked Slick, took a deep breath, and got ready for something else, new and strange. The end. Thanks for listening.